right, so hi guys, hi everyone joining us. बहुत बहुत स्वागत आप सभी का. Welcome to Grade Up, guys. Today I have an amazing guest with me, who is a very dear student of mine, Suvanssh Mahajan. Welcome, Suvanssh.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations, buddy, on getting All India rank 77, making us all proud, making your parents proud. How does it feel, Suvanssh?
Feels pretty good. You have certain expectations with yourself. So, actually, I won't lie here. I had expected a lot more, but then I was happy because in the end, all that matters is you perform to the best of your abilities and you know that you prepared well. And sometimes the examination situation demands that you are not sometimes able to perform to the best of your abilities, and it's fine as long as you put your 100% in at the time of the exam. So that's what matters every time.
Absolutely. And what was your family's reaction to this success of yours? How did they react? I'm sure you were a little upset. You were expecting a lot better, but
Yes, sir.
do share your family's experience.
My family was like if you can contrast my reaction with theirs, it's like day and night. So mine was a bit subdued because I'd been waiting all day and they released the result at midnight, and
Right.
you're completely drained, and then you get this. So I was pretty happy. I was content with myself, but then suddenly started flowing in that could have done a lot more better, because once I had come back home and I checked and I saw that I had picked the correct answer and changed it. So वो होते हैं ना, मतलब एक्सपेक्टेशन से उल्टा हो जाता है कभी कभी, एंड कॉन्फिडेंस इश्यूज थे थोड़े से एग्जाम के टाइम पे, बिकॉज the sections were flipped over and it was a complete mess at points, but that was fine. Like after a while it all subdued, and after a while I realized that I need to stop cribbing a little bit, and I need to realize that matlab jitna mila hai usme khush raho. Ki think about those people who performed so well. There were so many people who must have performed so well in their mocks, but then they were not able to perform to the same level in the final exam. And considering I had been prepping for so short of a time, because I had been busy throughout my 12th, and I had started on my law journey, like to prepare for my law in the beginning of 12th, and I had to quit coaching. I quit every single coaching. I did not spend a single penny on coaching, and I had to prepare on my own. So that was another fear, but in the end, all worked out. Considering I prepared on my own for like four to 5 months at max capacity. I found out about grade up also a little bit late, but all is well that ends well. So yes,
absolutely. And the rank that you actually scored is absolutely phenomenal. It's fabulous, and the college that you'll be getting, right, is one of the most prestigious law schools in not just India but the entire world, right? So many congratulations, Suvanssh. Many congratulations. You should be extremely proud on your achievements. I'm sure the humbleness that you with which you are actually answering all the questions. I'm sure all the students watching this video would understand, right? But this also shows that you were actually super duper confident about your preparation, about your attempts as well, right? So let's dive in and explore into the fact that how basically did you opted for law? What motivated you? When did you decide pursuing law, and what were the key factors in which basically you took this decision?
Okay, so everything starts in class 9. In class 9, I had been interested up to 9th, basic Indian child, whatever you may call it, engineering. My interest was primarily in engineering, and everybody had high expectations, clearing IIT, JEE, and whatnot. So around 9th and 10th, I joined a coaching institute near it's the most prestigious institute, and people might know which one it is, to prepare for my NTSC, to prepare for for my future exams. So in 9th, when I started studying, there was a small switch in my expectations and my like final the outcome I expected. I started inclining towards medical. Once I started studying biology and I found out I was pretty good at chemistry and biology, my interest started inclining towards that side. And but then again in 10th it switches back, because in 10th my NTSC preparation started, and when I was preparing for NTSC, one of my teachers told me that my level of general awareness and my level of awareness about whatever is happening around me is pretty good, and I could be a possible IAS aspirant. And
Wow.
that started rankling in my head a little bit, and it continued on, and I started thinking. And I was not thinking about law at that time. I was thinking more towards humanities and global affairs.
Hmm.
And I started debating. I have been participating in debates since class 9, debates and MUNs.
Very good.
And in from 10th, I switched to 11th, and I came to humanities. And after that, I had taken legal studies as a subject because I did not want to take any other subject. We had
Correct.
sociology as a subject, so I took legal studies. And when I started studying, that's when my actual interest in law came, and I started uh, understanding that my actual interest always lay in law and in understanding more about whatever is happening around me. So towards the end of 11th, I decided that I'm going to pursue law, and I took up coaching. I joined a local institute, but then the pandemic came, and I knew inside me that there is no point in online coaching as long as there's a holistic interaction between you and the teachers. And all that institute was particularly doing was uploading simple material, and they weren't interacting much. So I left that coaching, and I decided I would prepare on my own. And here's the result. I was able to
Rest, as
do
you say,
this one.
is
Yeah.
history. Well done.
Yes, sir.
So, Suvanssh, let's basically dive into your journey here and explore each subject here. So, if we are basically talking about each subject, say for example, we are talking about current affairs, we're talking about legal, we're talking about all the subjects. So, run us through with each subject. How basically did you prepare for each and every subject?
Okay. So, English, I'm going to be a little modest and say that I have been pretty good at English for as long as I remember. And English was never much of a problem for me, apart from particularly remembering synonyms, antonyms, because those questions always used to confuse me. When I used to do Olympiads, I started doing Olympiads from class second, and I continuously did them till class 10th or 11th. And I always faced a problem with synonyms and antonyms somehow, because I had not understood of perhaps I had not started reading suffixes and prefixes. So when I watched sir's class, that's when I realized that actually reading the words and understanding the roots, the word roots, can help you understand the words a lot more better than if you simply try to guess from the answers.
Absolutely.
And comprehensions weren't much of a problem for me in the beginning. The only problem with me was that I read very quickly. I have a pretty good reading speed, and that's good for reading generally, but it's not very good for entrance exams when you need to analyze each and every sentence very properly. So I had to tone down my reading speed a little bit. What I did was I tried to read the questions first, and then I moved towards the paragraphs so that I could know, because for me, when I looked at a paragraph, what I first saw were the main headers, and that's when I understood what the topic was going to be. And my general awareness was a little bit higher, so I sometimes knew what the passage would be about. So I did not waste my time reading them. I first read the
Correct.
questions. If they were inference-based questions, then I went back to the paragraph. If they were simple, read the line and write the answer. That's when I would look for keywords. So, for example, if a question asks me that what is the reason this particular person did this, I will go back to that particular sentence and read it, and the answer will always be there. You do not have to read the entire passage to get the answer for a simple yes or no question. So
Correct.
that's where you need to save your time on, and you need to cut your time down. For inference-based questions, that's when you need to identify which paragraph was relevant in that situation. Because if you'll read the entire paragraph for one inference questions, you'll basically waste your time. What you need to do is you need to carefully look at the paragraph, especially considering there are always divisions in paragraphs. The first will be the introduction, second will be the body, and third will be the conclusion. So you will always know where that particular sentence will lie and what inference will lie upon that. So English wasn't much of a problem for me, and English does not require much preparation unless you are a complete novice and you haven't been reading consistently for the past 1 or 2 years. So you need to
Correct.
build up your reading speed and build up your reading habit. Newspapers always helps, books always help. So that's all you need to do to build up on your English. Otherwise, you need to go completely with a calm head for English, because you cannot memorize English. And I mean, everybody knows it, but some people do try to memorize English, and that's a really bad thing to do.
Correct.
For GK was the section which gave me the most anxiety, which is why I turned to Grade Up and other YouTube pages, because current affairs is the most vast thing. If you look at this year's paper, it was extremely anxiety inducing, considering they've asked dates, they've asked specific information, contrasted with last year's paper. And you can see that last year they asked much better questions, because they were inference. There was a 40% fact based, static based, and 60% inference based. This time they completely switched it over, and they asked the date, for example, the date on which Sheikh Mujibur Rahman died. And coincidentally, I had searched about Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's assassination just 2 days before, but I did not focus on the date because the date part was not important. I had to read, because all of us were reading intelligently. We were not memorizing information for the sake of it. We were reading the reasons behind it. We read the reasons why Sheikh Mujibur Rahman died, not the exact date on which he died. So what I would like to recommend to next year or next to next year's aspirants is, do not give up on static information. It will help. Even if you aren't able to memorize, at least read them once or twice to memorize important dates. Like, for example, why I eliminated 15 August 1970, I think it was 75, was because I thought that maybe it's a trick question. Maybe they're adding August 15 to confuse me. And I did November 15. I was able to eliminate 2 options because he did not die in 1960, because the revolution happened in 71. That was good. That was the easy part. The elimination is the easy part. What is more important is you need to remember the exact month, and that's a bit hard if you fall for the trap. So in this, the answer was August, and there's a 50-50 chance you'll get it right. So if you are not good at static GK, do not take the risk in such questions. Focus on the inference-based questions first. If you do not know the answer, do not stick to it, because every question carries the same marks. Every question has the same weightage. They won't see which question you answered this particular hard question particularly well, therefore you'll get more marks. That's not so. Do not ignore the valuable questions for questions which are there to trick you particularly. Absolutely. And how I prepared for current affairs was, I did not focus on static information, because when you start reading about the actual analysis, when you read actual articles, the static information comes in your mind automatically. If you start reading, for example, if you get an article on Bangladesh, right? I read about Bangladesh-India relations. I will not particularly read ki kisne kahan par kya inaugurate kiya. What I'll read is why Bangladesh-India relations have taken a step up, why they deteriorated when PM Modi visited Bangladesh, what awards were given, why was that award given to Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, what was the importance of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman in the Bangladeshi revolution. They asked a very good question, which I would like to state, which actually goes to show how much you are able to read. They asked, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was the first dash of Bangladesh. When I read about Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, I particularly fit it inside my head that he was not the first prime minister of Bangladesh. He was the first president, because people tend to always assume that the first, whoever comes first is the prime minister. So he will have to necessarily be the prime minister. He became the prime minister later on. He was the first president of Bangladesh. And that's when you need to also know, for example, if you know what Bangladesh system is, if you know how the Bangladeshi system works, that's also when you're able to infer information like this. So what I would like to say is, always do not stick to static information. Always read in depth. इस बार नहीं पूछा कोई बात नहीं. When you start reading in depth for about a year, these people have more than a year waiting for them ahead. You have an year, you can read about a particular topic multiple times when you read a newspaper. It's not कि अगर if India and Bangladesh relations is a particular topic, it's not कि वो एक बार newspaper में आएगा और उसके बाद आएगा ही नहीं. It will keep repeating over and over, because you'll see how the relations develop, and you'll be able to understand why this particular issue was important. Also, another recommendation for all the students, do not consider कि अगर paper अभी हुआ है तो इससे पहले की news नहीं आएगी. This time they completely tricked us. This time they put the Galwan Valley issue, which happened in June, which happened in May, June. And we were told that there is no need, start from October. But there was that anxiety inside my head that maybe, just maybe, if the examiners are planning to trick us, they will add questions from past news. And I read upon it, but nobody can remember headline dates. You can't be expected to remember the exact dates when a clash happened unless and until you have memorized that information. So it's fine. Memorize information, but do not consider it important. What is more important is analysis of the data, especially if you watch Salih sir's class or Abhimanyu sir's class. What they did was, they do not talk about simple information. What they do is, they take up a topic and then they completely analyze it. What is the ramifications of this particular decision, why this decision was particularly important. And that's what everybody needs to do for GK and current affairs especially. About logical reasoning, I needed a lot of practice in logical reasoning. Why? Because number one, logical reasoning with paragraphs can completely shake your mind. It can completely destroy your mental ability to sit normally in the paper, because you realize that if I haven't paragraph nahi padha, I cannot make a normal inference. What the students can do is read the passage from the perspective of the person who wrote it. When you look for facts, for example, if there is a paragraph, there was a 1 page long paragraph on the COVID crisis, COVID and unemployment crisis in this year's paper, which, if you realize, is a pretty long passage and you cannot normally read it. Always look for the shortest paragraphs first. The best trick you can do is do the short passages quickly, because reading a short passage and making inferences is very easy. And if you look at the questions first, you'll understand better what the author is trying to say. Just read the question, what inference is this person trying to make when he says quote unquote this. You'll understand acha, maybe this passage is about the COVID crisis. Maybe this paragraph tells us about unemployment. That's when you'll be able to read the passage, because if you dive into a passage head on, तुम्हें पहले समझ नहीं आएगा, because you will be reading it from a completely fresh perspective and you won't understand the questions क्या बोलेंगे. Read the questions first, then go back to the paragraph, and that's when you'll be able to understand more better what the author is trying to convey.
Nice approach.
Also, another approach is, this is a trick which everybody should know and will help you. Go to the end of the logical reasoning section first. Why? The end of the logical reasoning section has all the juicy questions which you can get right in a single go. It has all one questions which you do not need to waste your time reading. You read the question, answer it, read the question, answer it. Especially if you are good at those the table questions, if you're good at arrangement questions, if you're good at team questions, you'll be able to do the last part of the logical reasoning section very easily, and you'll get at least 5 or 6 questions right out of those, if not the complete set. So do those questions first, then go back to the paragraphs and move from the smaller paragraphs to the larger paragraphs. Then there was quantitative. I have been pretty consistent in quantitative, at least in the grade up mega mocks, but the problem was that this year they completely switched over and asked paragraph based questions. You had to make the graphs yourself, and that completely haywired me. It's a benefit for the future students, because they know they can ask any type of questions. They can ask you graphs, they can ask you to make the graphs, they can ask you to interpret the information. And even though there were a lot of questions wrong because they did not take up the objections, but still, when you need to look at the questions, do not waste your time if you think you cannot make the graphs quickly. Like I'll tell you, this year's paper had won the easiest DI section. The DI question was the one in which you had to tell the demographics of the state. Why you can understand this if you read it carefully, it's simple information. Is this age group has this particular percent of population, this age group has this particular. So you can just write it down and then infer it on the basis of that. If you look at the income-based question, that will be a bit harder, income and profit-based, because income wale mein you have to draw the pie chart, and there will be separate questions because they will ask you particularly if the income was this, if the food spending was this much. So do not waste your time on that. Do the simpler questions first so that you can build up the momentum to complete the quantitative section. Legal reasoning, I had gone in with very high expectations, but they disappointed me a little bit because they asked static questions. They asked a lot of static questions in legal reasoning, which should not have happened, because it gave edge to people who have taken up coaching for 1 or 2 years, because by that time you've memorized answers. And they asked direct questions from mocks of ALET. When I saw ALET mock papers, they asked questions like, when you see the communication acceptance, I had done the communication acceptance questions in a mega mock about once or twice, but they asked questions which are from books and which you will see in coaching mocks, which are not good, because what we were told was, do not waste your time on bad mocks. What bad mocks are, those mocks basically demotivate you because they ask you information which is not relevant to your CLAT exam. They put a bad mock in the final paper, and that was a bad thing, but you need to be prepared for every scenario. So now you know, complete the bad mocks as well, complete the good mocks as well. There is no issue. Every piece of information helps. This is one mistake. I wouldn't call it a mistake. What I would call it is an oversight, because I did not consider the consortium would do this. But for you, always focus on what you are gaining from mocks. Marks कम आते हैं, कोई बात नहीं, छोड़ दो. Analyze the mocks. तुम ये मत देखो कि तुमने गलत कौन सा किया, सही कौन सा किया. ये देखो कि तुमने गलत क्यों किया. If you look at a legal reasoning question, understand why this logic was correct and why this logic was wrong. इस बार तुम चाहे आंसर्स मेमोराइज कर सकते हो ना, अगर तुम फॉर द मेन कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल एंड टॉट बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस कर लो, कोई बात नहीं, बिकॉज अगर तुम देखो ना, दे विल आस्क क्वेश्चंस बेस्ड ऑन पास्ट केस लॉज. Balfour versus Balfour, Rylance versus Fletcher. There was another case, I forgot the exact name, the car crash case. So they asked the particular car crash case directly in this one, in tort-based law. Memorize those answers. मैं तुम्हें बोल रहा हूँ because you need to prepare smartly from now on, and you need to be a little bit more prepared than the other students. Other students will prepare from 2020 perspective. You need to prepare from a 2021 perspective as well. So legal reasoning nahi bhi hota, it's fine. Do all types of mocks. Understand where you went wrong, why your logic was wrong, and why their logic was correct. Think from the examiner's perspective. Another thing, also brush up on your legal GK, because this time what they did was they asked a lot of information which was not in the passage context. One thing in CLAT 2020, they asked one static question: defamation is a civil wrong or a criminal wrong, which you should ideally know if you're preparing for law, which you should 100% know. But this time they asked questions such as, for example, there was a passage on government compensation, which was basically if a government employee dies, so the family can ask for payment, extra payment in form of money. They asked questions which were not related to the paragraph, because in the paragraph they did not mention even a single time about government norms. They did not mention ki government norms ke case mein which will overrule, and in that you had to know the basic law. And kaun memorize kare itna law, but what you need to do is jo mile wo information gain karo. Passage tumhe jitna
Basically,
bekar,
Suvanssh, how were you able to retain all these information? So the
okay,
students actually face this problem. You're absolutely right
yes,
that you have to remember lots of things. So how were you
yes.
basically remembering all of them?
How I remembered it was I read important articles. When you see a Hindu newspaper, what they tell you is to read intelligently. They tell you ki acha, read the first page because the national news is important. Read the editorial page because it is important. Read the world page. What I did was I read in between. I read the compensation cases. I read ki छोटे छोटे जो there are small articles in the Hindu newspaper which tell us ki why these people were awarded compensation, why this particular case was closed, why the Supreme Court said this, and usme you get a lot of good information ki why the Supreme Court was thinking this particular way. You wouldn't normally expect a passage on government compensation, but if you read, there are many people who are given compensation very regularly. There are many cases on ex gratia payments, on on uh, on
But
compensation givens.
how did you remember all these
I
things?
did not remember how, why. What I did was I read them and I understood. याद करने की जरूरत नहीं है if you know the topic. If you know the topic well, you do not need to memorize information. Listen to that story. जिसके अंदर jar में if you fill the balls, like वो होता है ना, टेनिस बॉल्स भर देते हो तो उसके बाद जगह नहीं बचती, but if you fill the sand first तो उसके बाद किसी की जगह नहीं बचती, so you need to fill in the spaces. The balls form the basic information. जो तुमने बेसिक अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, उसके बाद तुम बीच में जितनी इंफॉर्मेशन भरनी है भर लो. if you understand a topic well, you do not
Right.
need to understand extra information because वो अपने आप naturally आ जाएगी दिमाग में. If I read a compensation paragraph 5 times consistently in a newspaper every day, उसके बाद मेरे को ये समझ आ जाएगा कि इसने इसलिए कंपेंसेशन दी. मेरे को ये याद भी करना पड़ेगा कि उसने कितनी कंपेंसेशन दी, क्यों वो कंपेंसेशन दी, कि वो गवर्नमेंट के एम्प्लॉय को क्यों कंपेंसेशन नहीं मिली. तो उसके बाद also there was another paragraph. If you consider the one on communication of acceptance mein there was another question, about fraud and misrepresentation. इसके अंदर if you attend legal GK classes, अब तो तुम कर लेना. मैंने जो गलती की, I did not attend legal GK classes. मैंने legal GK छोड़ दिया था because I was hoping that the consortium would put logical based questions. They would ask good inference based questions in legal reasoning, and not remember like the type of information you have to remember. But if you attend legal GK classes consistently, especially I think it was Nivedita ma'am's class, because she took the main legal issues on grade up. Attend those classes regularly because those cases will keep repeating and you'll remember. मैं बताऊं क्या होगा? If you remember कि इस पर्टिकुलर केस में एक कार क्रैश हुआ था और उस कार क्रैश में उस बंदे ने कंपेंसेशन मांगी बट उसको नहीं मिली क्योंकि उसने विलिंगली रिस्क लिया था. अब तुम्हें याद हो जाएगा कि इस केस में हुआ था, इसका मतलब अगर उन्होंने ट्विस्ट करके उसकी जगह कोई राजू डाल दिया, उन्होंने कोई बंदा डाल दिया कि वो किसी हॉर्स रेसिंग में चला गया था, या वो किसी और बड़े चलो वो किसी एयर एक्सपो में गया था, वहां पर एयरप्लेन क्रैश होगा और वो मर गया. तो इवन दो द टर्म्स वर स्विच्ड, तुम्हें इंफॉर्मेशन याद नहीं करनी पड़ी बिकॉज यू रिमेंबर कि मैंने वो केस रियल लाइफ से रिलेट किया कि अगर मैं किसी कार रेसिंग में जा रहा हूँ तो मैं खुद विलिंगली दे रहा हूँ. जब वो टिकट में पढ़ता हूँ, टिकट में लिखा होता है कि यू आर लायबल फॉर एनी लॉसेस और एनी लॉस और इंजरी यू कॉज्ड, यूर लायबल. ठीक है, क्योंकि तुमने विलिंगली रिस्क लिया तो तुम्हें याद करने की जरूरत ही नहीं पड़ेगी. प्रॉब्लम ही यही है ना, दे एडेड अ लॉट ऑफ स्टैटिक इन्फॉर्मेशन मैंने कंसिस्टेंटली नहीं किया था, इसलिए मेरे को याद नहीं था. इफ यू कंसिस्टेंटली अटेंड क्लासेस, तुम्हें अपने आप याद हो जाएगा, बिकॉज दैट इंफॉर्मेशन विल कीप रिपीटिंग इनसाइड योर हेड. मैंने ये केस लॉग 5, 6, 7 बार कंट्रैक्ट में पढ़ा. अब मेरे को कोई इश्यूज नहीं, अगर इन्होंने चेंज भी कर दिया ना, मेरे को याद रहेगा कि इस केस के अंदर ये होना चाहिए था. अब तुम्हारे लिए यही जरूरी है. तो आई हैव डन इंग्लिश, legal, logical, maths, and GK. Yeah, it's done.
Right. So now, Suvanssh, we've understood, what basically, in detail you analyzed each and every section, how, you've also suggested all the students. I'm sure everyone listening to this, conversation will definitely be extremely benefiting from every information that you have actually shared. So thank you on behalf of all the students who would be watching this, right? So, Suvanssh, now do share this with us, right? We're talking about, quantitative ability. As a section now, lots of students basically face a problem, right? Lots of students have this weakness. So was this a weak subject for you, or which was your weak subject, and how did you tackle the same?
Okay, what was weak for me consistently was I saw that my legal and logical caused me the most losses,
right?
And I knew that in the end, I'll be very honest with everyone, legal and logical may you will be liable for a lot of mistakes, because they are very ambiguous questions and you cannot get the answer correct on the first go unless and until तुमने याद किया वो आंसर, या तो ऐसा हो कि तुमने वो सेम पैराग्राफ 5-6 बार किया हुआ है, इसलिए तुम्हें रट्टा मारा हुआ है. क्योंकि every person does not think the same way at every point of time. Even when your brain logically thinks, it thinks logically differently across different situations. तुम्हारे लिए logic can be different at one particular time, it can be different. So you need to train your brain कि मेरे को बिल्कुल इमोशनलेस वे में सोचना है, मेरे को बिल्कुल नॉर्मल तरीके से सोचना है. दैट्स व्हाट आई डिड. क्योंकि इफ यू गो इन विद एन इमोशनल स्टेट ऑफ माइंड कि हाँ अच्छा इसको कंपेंसेशन नहीं मिली यार, इसको तो मिलनी चाहिए थी, इस बंदे ने ऐसा किया यार इसको, क्योंकि उनमें ऑप्शंस भी इमोशनल डालेंगे. दे विल डेलिबरेटली पीक दैट इमोशनल पार्ट ऑफ योर ब्रेन कि इस बंदे ने तो गलत कुछ किया ही नहीं, इसको तो पैसे मिलने चाहिए. बट देन व्हेन यू रीड द पैराग्राफ अगेन, उसमें स्पेसिफिकली लिखा हुआ है कि इस बंदे ने चाहे ये किया हो चाहे वो किया हो, इसको कंपेंसेशन मिल ही नहीं सकती. तो you need to eliminate that emotional part of your side, and it's okay. Legal and logical में कम स्कोर करना is completely fine, क्योंकि अगर तुम सारे भी अटेम्प्ट करोगे ना, गलत होने के चांसेस तो उतने ही हैं, क्योंकि वो कंसिस्टेंट लेवल डिपेंड करता है. लीगल के कुछ क्वेश्चन डिफिकल्ट होंगे, कुछ इजी होंगे जो 1-2 में हो जाएंगे, कुछ नहीं होंगे, और उसके अंदर भी yes no वाले दो ऑप्शंस होंगे. तो उसके अंदर भी फिर तो बोलेंगे कि 50-50 है कि मैंने नो तो एलिमिनेट कर दिया, बट yes में से दोनों ऑप्शंस बिल्कुल सेम लग रहे हैं, मैं छोड़ू या ना करूं. इट्स कंप्लीटली ऑन यू इफ यू वांट टू टेक द रिस्क, बिकॉज अगर तुम रिस्क लोगे मार्क्स आएंगे, रिस्क लोगे तो देयर इज अ पॉसिबिलिटी कि मार्क्स जाएंगे, बट इन द एंड तुम रियलाइज करोगे कि तुमने वो गलती क्यों की. स्पेशली इन द मॉक्स, स्टार्ट योर मॉक्स बाय अटेम्प्टिंग ईच एंड एवरी सिंगल क्वेश्चन. डू नॉट स्टार्ट योर मॉक्स विद द पर्सपेक्टिव कि मेरे को आगे स्कोर करना है कि मेरे को ऊपर स्कोर करना है.
So on this, we'll talk about mocks. So basically, do share with us how many basically mocks did you give? The entire mock journey that you basically had. How was your initial scores? And now that you've also shared that you decided way back, you were preparing for CLAT, so you were also basically studying for the previous pattern, right? Initially when you must have started, it was a different pattern altogether. Then this
no, it wasn't a different pattern. This shift happened. This year the shift happened. I was preparing from the CLAT 2020 perspective because I gave the CLAT 2020 paper. I wasn't eligible. I got AIR 179 with zero prep. So ho gaya tha. Well, so I gave it with zero prep. So I was hoping कि they would keep the pattern consistent this time, because I was thinking कि अगर मैंने इस perspective से prepare किया तो there is a possibility I can score even higher. There is a huge possibility I can score well. But then they completely switched over and my brain just completely haywired. And it was fine. It was good that I was able to perform because let me tell about my mocks. I started my mocks journey with grade up only, क्योंकि उससे पहले मैंने कोई mocks दिए नहीं थे. What happened was I got some external mocks from some particular institute. But those mocks were not along the CLAT 2020 pattern. But now that I look back at it, they were along the CLAT 2021 pattern. जिस तरह उन्होंने इस बार पेपर डाला, those mocks were on that pattern. So I completely left those mocks. I went to grade up mocks because these mocks were actually good. When I started off, I did pretty well. I scored in the 90 section with zero prep, because the first time I got introduced to grade up was through a mega mock. I got a message or something and I thought chalo de dete hain because I need to practice, and I gave that and I got a pretty decent score. But I was like, acha, I can perform way better. So my scores improved, but then there was a sudden dip. My there was a huge dip. I dipped from the top 10 in the mocks to around 40, 50. It's not a big dip, but self-confidence pe it's a bit crumbling when you realize that I could have done so much better. कि मैं because I was attempting कि हाँ मेरे को high score करना है, उस कारण मेरा low score आया. Because I was like अच्छा मेरे को सिर्फ इतने score करने चाहिए, नहीं तो मेरे negative आ जाएंगे. उस perspective से you will not be able to do your mocks to the full capacity. सारे attempt करो because I don't remember. I think it was Rabia ma'am who gave me a suggestion in a Q&A session. I asked her ki what I should do to improve my score in mocks because there has been a drastic dip in my scores and I'm basically demotivated to the maximum extent. What she said was कि तुम जब मॉक्स उस पर्सपेक्टिव से दोगे कि तुम्हें ज्यादा रैंक लेकर आना है, तुम्हारा रैंक आएगा ही नहीं ऊपर. तुम मजे से मॉक दोगे, तुम ये रियलाइज करोगे कि मैं इधर इंफॉर्मेशन गेन करने आया हूँ, रैंक नहीं. दैट्स व्हेन यू विल बी एबल टू स्कोर द मैक्सिमम. तो आई started doing all 150 questions. उसके बाद I did not leave a single question unless and until there was a time constraint. I solved 145 to 150. मेरा 145, 150, and I started scoring pretty well. I noticed कि as soon as I did the mocks from a perspective कि मेरे को information gain करनी है and मेरे को analyze करना है, that's when you realize कि mocks are actually an assessment of how well you can cope with examination pressure. They're not analysis, especially a CLAT mock. A CLAT mock is not an analysis of how much you know. It's an analysis of how much capacity you can put in those 2 hours to maximize those sections where you know you'll perform well and not fixate on those parts where you're not able to attempt well. अगर तुम्हें पता चल गया कि लीगल में लंबे passages हैं, तुमने देख लिया, look through the passages. सबसे पहले जीके पे जाओ. जीके तुम you can wind through the GK section in 5 minutes क्योंकि it's just a tick and cross section जहाँ पर तुम्हें पैराग्राफ भी पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी. इस बार तो जरूरत थी नहीं. In CLAT 2020, there was a necessity that you had to read the paragraph because there were a lot of hints hidden. I'll give an example. The Treaty of Sugauli. There were a lot of people who were against that question. कि Treaty of Sugauli पूछा. If you read the passage carefully, उधर mention था कि Treaty of Sugauli was signed between these particular parties. और तुम्हें सिर्फ info करना था. This time they did not do it. This time they asked random static questions from everywhere. So again, GK section में tick नहीं आता छोड़ दो. Tick नहीं आता छोड़ दो. Do not fixate on the GK section particularly because you know कि GK अगर मुश्किल है.
You've shared that your learnings from the mocks, right? So how many, if I ask you, approximately how many mocks did you actually give?
I registered for every single mock. What I did was मैंने ये नहीं सोचा कि अच्छा ALET का mock है, ALET से CLAT की मदद मिलेगी because all mocks, if you consider law mocks, if you do those mocks consistently, considering 2021 as well, अगर तुमने ALET और जामिया वगैरह की भी mocks दिए होते, you would notice कि वही questions उन्होंने इसमें भी डाले हुए थे. They added direct questions from जामिया and ALET and MHCET questions. तो do not consider कि मेरे को सिर्फ CLAT के mocks देने हैं. Give every single mock you get ताकि तुम you can widen your scope. तुम सिर्फ CLAT के mocks दोगे, end में जाके तुम फिर क्या बोलोगे कि मैंने वो mock नहीं किए, अच्छा उस mock से question डाल दिया था उन्होंने. वो regret नहीं होना चाहिए. What I was saying was there were around 30 mocks से कम तो हो नहीं सकते. 30 mocks थे आराम से. And then in the end I got some other subscriptions wo like you pay a small amount and you get a good mock and you attempt it and you solve it. Do not get demotivated. ये तो मेरे से मत सीखना कि मेरी बहुत बुरी आदत थी. I used to get demotivated a lot by mocks. I was like अगर मैंने इस मॉक में अच्छा नहीं किया इसका मतलब मेरे में पक्का कोई कमी है कि कमी नहीं, कमी तो सब में होती है. मैंने ये सोचा कि मैंने तो बेकार कर दिया, इसके बाद में कुछ कर ही नहीं सकता. ये पर्सपेक्टिव मत रखना, बहुत गलत पर्सपेक्टिव है. By the end of it I was a little bit more used to it क्योंकि I had given a lot of mocks by then.
Correct.
Keep giving mocks and keep filling those mocks, the time between your mocks with extra information. Keep reading. ये मत सोचो कि सिर्फ mocks से तुम्हारा काम हो जाएगा. Watch videos, watch consistently, read on current affairs. Newspaper तो daily पढ़ो. Newspaper read daily. Maybe again another flaw of mine which I do not want anyone to replicate is I took a lot of time in reading my newspaper. I was told कि take only 1 to 2 hours to read your newspaper. अब मेरा था because मेरा क्या होता था, I read a newspaper and I analyzed every single article ढंग से which I knew was important. मैंने एक पैराग्राफ पढ़ा for example on torture. I read on the UN convention on torture. I read कि वो convention इंडिया ने क्यों साइन नहीं किया and ये. I kept getting distracted क्योंकि मैं थोड़ा हूँ ऐसा. I can't stay still.
Actually, this distraction of yours it's an advantage only. Right?
Only if you start
on any issue, if you're looking on the internet, if you're visiting all these stuff. This is actually something which all of us basically should learn. All
Me
of you
too.
who are watching this video, it's a huge tip which he's sharing. Please.
So actually, you need not to do this in the last phase of your exam. उस time पे you have to revise. उस time में you do not have to read your newspaper पूरा का पूरा. Leave the newspaper थोड़ी देर के लिए. I would recommend, as Salil sir said, Salil sir was very right. He said कि 15 जुलाई तक पढ़ के रखना. इन्होंने पक्का बुरा पेपर डालना है. इन्होंने end के news से डालना है. I read till 15 and I left it after that. I was like, newspaper पे अगर मैं दिन के 5-5 घंटे लगाता रहा, मेरा नहीं हो पाएगा. Because after a particular point, वो same information saturation point आ जाता है. No need to read the newspaper. If you have consistently read the newspaper for a year, it is absolutely enough for you. कोई बात नहीं अगर तुमने ढंग से न्यूज़पेपर डेली का पढ़ा होगा ना. मेरा तो पता है क्या हो चुका है, मैं सबको बड़ी ऑनेस्टली बताता हूँ. मैंने न्यूज़पेपर छोड़ दिया. हिंदू आता है, आई डू नॉट हैव द एनर्जी टू पिक इट अप, क्योंकि अब जब मैं न्यूज़पेपर उठाता हूँ ना, मैं उसी सेम एनालिसिस पर्सपेक्टिव से उस आर्टिकल को देखता हूँ. आई कैन नॉट लुक एट अ न्यूज़पेपर द सेम वे अगेन. तो वो होता है, वो हैंगओवर आता है, बट इट्स अ गुड वे, क्योंकि क्लैट में ऐसे काम नहीं आएगा कि तुम सिर्फ आर्टिकल पढ़ लो और छोड़ दो. इफ यू रीड एन आर्टिकल, रीड अपॉन इट. तुम्हें कोई सपोज इजराइल पैलेस्टीन का इशू था इस बार, इन्होंने डाला नहीं आर्टिकल, मतलब मेरे को बड़ा बुरा लगा. इजराइल पैलेस्टीन वाज एन इशू व्हिच कुड हैव मेड अ वेरी गुड पैसेज क्वेश्चन. तुम्हें इजराइल पैलेस्टीन का आया, रीड अपॉन द हिस्ट्री, रीड की उनकी लड़ाई क्यों हुई, रीड हु इज करेक्ट अकॉर्डिंग टू यू, हु इज रॉन्ग, बट डू नॉट लेट इट वे अपॉन योर ओपिनियन इन द एंड. क्योंकि क्वेश्चन में क्या हुआ था इन 2020, दे आस्क्ड इजराइल का पूरे एक पैराग्राफ में, दे आस्क्ड ओपिनियन बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस इन व्हिच यू हैड टू हैव अ वेरी न्यूट्रल पर्सपेक्टिव ऑन द इशू. Read upon it, but do not form a very strong opinion on it. मेरा क्या था, मैंने completely opinion form करना छोड़ दिया. Leave your opinions aside for at least the last phase of your preparation. Opinions में अगर तुम घुस गए, तुम अपने रिवीजन पे छोड़ दोगे. क्योंकि अगर तुम if you start reading कि if this is correct, is the Israel Palestine issue, should Israel be supported, should Palestine, only read, अगर तुम ऐसा पैसेज पढ़ते हो, only read for factual information. कोई important, अगर तुम्हें उसके अंदर suppose if you read an Israel Palestine issue, some keywords keep repeating. Keywords कौन से repeat होंगे? The Balfour Declaration, Sykes-Picot Agreement, the 1948 UN agreement to form Palestine, the British mandated Palestine, Isaac Herzog, Naftali Bennett. These terms keep repeating. Name of Israel, parliament पता होने चाहिए, Knesset. Last year they asked कि Israel का constitution है कि नहीं. If you haven't even read on Israel, Israel Palestine के issue पे पढ़ा, तुमने Israel के बारे में नहीं पढ़ा तो फायदा क्या? Israel के बारे में पढ़ो, Palestine के बारे में पढ़ो. Do an in-depth analysis, leave that in the last phase, but पहले होना चाहिए, नहीं तो तुम्हारा वो base ही हिल जाएगा. If you form a strong base for your information, at least in GK, you will have no problems in GK and current affairs. I can assure you that.
So basically, Suvanssh, we've understood, how should basically we process, how should we proceed with regards to current affairs? How should we basically go about newspapers? Mock test का आपने अच्छे से हमें analysis आपने करके दिया. So do share with us, how has grade up helped you?
Yeah, okay. Grade up, the best thing about grade up was that I found out about it first. मेरे को grade up के बारे में पता ही बहुत indirectly चला. And it was a very good thing because I fixated upon important videos. क्योंकि कुछ videos बीच में आते हैं that are not relevant. Stick to the relevant videos. For example, if you see the GK marathon sessions, if you see the legal marathon sections, if you see quantitative, it's fine. If you are good at maths, there is no need to waste your time on those videos. If you are good at maths, don't waste. Watch those videos which are very relevant for you. I basically particularly focused on Abhimanyu sir's class. I focused on Salil sir's class, and I focused on Krishnendu sir's class for critical reasoning. Abhimanyu sir's class for normal GK, Salil sir's class for daily current affairs, and Krishnendu sir, I told you already, for critical and English. So it was for me. For people, it might be different. मैंने mocks दिए grade up के consistently, mega mocks obviously. Watch videos consistently. नहीं देख सकते, watch it on 2x later, but मैंने notes नहीं बनाए. For everybody's information, I did not make notes. Watch videos, focus on the information at hand, listen to it carefully, and let it get rooted inside your head. And that's all I'd like to advise everyone. कि grade up देखो तो intelligently देखो. Any site you get, watch it very intelligently, because that crucial information is hidden somewhere inside those videos, which you might think कि अच्छा ये GK की क्लास है, नहीं मैं खुद पढ़ूंगी, मत करना. Watch those videos, do self study, balance it out. That's absolutely. That's all.
So now you do share with us, if you're talking about you've talked about current affair preparation. How many hours on a daily basis were you actually devoting for your entrance exam preparation?
I devoted my entire day to my entrance. क्योंकि the boards were over. Boards तो थे नहीं. For the future batch, you will need to prepare for your boards as well. So you might need to start preparation a little bit earlier. Why I was able to do, I will be very honest with everyone. I started my prep in April. मैंने मार्च अप्रैल में शुरू की थी अपनी एक्चुअल प्रेप. उससे पहले आई वाज रीडिंग नॉर्मली. उससे पहले आई वाजंट प्रिपेयरिंग फ्रॉम अ प्रिपरेशन पर्सपेक्टिव. स्टार्ट अर्लियर, स्टार्ट वाचिंग वीडियोस. अभी के करंट अफेयर्स, चाहे it won't matter, but it will help you from the base, as I already said.
Correct.
Watch very consistently. मैं पूरा पूरा दिन पढ़ता था. It used to be very draining, but problem was कि अगर तुम, if you do not devote a major chunk of your time to an entrance which actually matters to you, you cannot perform well. अगर तुम बोलो कि मैं दिन में सिर्फ 4 या 5 घंटे पढ़ती हूँ, it's fine. तुम्हारे लिए ठीक है, अच्छी बात है, बट अगर तुम उस 4-5 घंटे में तुम कुछ भी नहीं कर रहे, उस 4-5 घंटे में you just watch एक वीडियो and you do not do any self study, कोई फायदा ही नहीं है.
Absolutely.
Watch videos. चाहे तुम्हें, if you need to reduce the screen time, what you can do is watch the videos, stop, close it, try to memorize कि तुमने क्या क्या पढ़ा. अगर मैंने कोई वीडियो देखा, फॉर एग्जांपल अगर मैंने सलल सर का वीडियो देखा, आई विल ट्राई टू रिमेंबर कि मैंने न्यूज़पेपर में क्या पढ़ा था. वो एक पर्टिकुलर आर्टिकल था जो मैंने पढ़ा था, वो आर्टिकल कौन सा था. अगर मेरे को याद नहीं आता, कोई बात नहीं, रीड इट अगेन, सर्च इट अप, वॉच इट अगेन, let it drain inside you, because all that matters in the end is the understanding, the core understanding that needs to be rooted inside your head, जो 4-5 घंटे में नहीं हो सकता if you only watch videos for 4-5 घंटे.
Right.
Watch videos, do your self study, read newspapers. नोट्स नहीं बनाए जाते, कोई बात नहीं, ये तो तुम याद रखना. जो भी टॉपर वगैरह लोग तुम्हें बोलते हैं ना, चलो मैं टॉपर नहीं हूँ, आई एम टॉकिंग फ्रॉम अ नॉर्मल पर्सपेक्टिव. आई होप आई वुड हैव बीन अ टॉपर.
You are also a topper, buddy.
I'm speaking. Yeah, so what I would recommend is, do not listen to people saying कि नोट्स बना भाई, नोट्स बनाने से सब कुछ होता है. नोट्स बनाने से कुछ नहीं होता अगर तुम वो नोट्स पढ़ोगे ही नहीं फ्यूचर में जाके. मेरा ये है, if I make notes, I never read them in the future. ये मेरा ड्रॉबैक है, कुछ के लिए नहीं होगा. If you're good at making notes, make them. If you're not able to make notes, focus on the others.
Find what suits you the best, right?
Yes,
अगर आपको,
exactly.
if you are someone who basically remembers while writing, right? Write and revise is
Yes.
something which works for you, then it's okay. Otherwise, for you, basically you observed कि यार अगर मैंने उसको, if I basically make a mental note, that actually makes
mental note. Exactly. I never wrote anything. What I used to write was, मेरी notebook, it looks like an absolute mess. क्योंकि what was कि if I'm listening, I subconsciously start writing. क्योंकि मेरा ये था, if I subconsciously write it, I remember. वो होता है ना eidetic memory कि you wrote it somewhere. तुम्हें वो याद रहता है. तो if you can't make proper notes, just keep writing. सुन रहे हो, अच्छा this is the main point, अच्छा मैंने ये लिख दिया, साथ में लिखते जाओ. उसके बाद नहीं पढ़ना, कोई बात नहीं. Because if you're able to create a written memory for it, तुम्हें और holistically याद रहेगा. तुम्हें फ्यूचर में ये नहीं याद करना पड़ेगा मैंने पढ़ा कहाँ था, क्योंकि तुम याद करोगे, अच्छा मैंने नोटबुक में ना कहीं पे एटलीस्ट ये लिखा था. एंड में जाके अगर तुम एजुकेशनल गैसिंग भी कर रहे हो, रट्टे मारने से फायदा नहीं होता, एजुकेशनल गैसिंग भी कर रहे हो, तुम्हें याद होगा मैंने ये पर्टिकुलरली इंफॉर्मेशन कहीं पे तो पढ़ी थी. So that's what matters.
Absolutely. Your subconscious memory does come to your aid. Well said, Suvanssh.
Yes.
Suvanssh, before we wind this session up, I would definitely request you to please, what will be your one advice to everyone who's basically appearing for law entrance exam in the near future? What will be your advice to them?
एक एडवाइस दूंगा, टिपिकल एडवाइस नहीं दूंगा कि पढ़ते रहो. हैव फन व्हाइल प्रिपेयरिंग. मजे करो. स्टडी फ्रॉम द पर्सपेक्टिव कि मेरे को कितनी इंफॉर्मेशन मिल रही है यार. मतलब मैं खुद बताऊं, मैंने इतनी चीजें समझी हैं which I would not normally have read. If you see, and especially for CLAT, once you start preparing, you gain so much. तो तुम्हें उस टाइम पे याद नहीं रहेगा, क्योंकि तुम उस पर्सपेक्टिव से आते हो कि अच्छा मेरे को तो सिर्फ याद रखना है, मैं पढ़ थोड़ी ना रहा हूँ. बाद में तुम रियलाइज करते हो कि मेरे को कितनी अच्छी अंडरस्टैंडिंग डेवलप हुई है इस पर्टिकुलर इशू पे. अगर कोई डिबेट होती है अब फ्यूचर में जाके, अगर मेरे से कोई पूछता है कि तुम्हारा इस पर्टिकुलर इशू पे क्या बोलना है, कि तुम्हारा रिजर्वेशन पे क्या है, मैंने मराठा रिजर्वेशन पढ़ा हुआ, मेरे को पता है. मेरे को पता है कि 12-13% डिवीजन है. मेरे को पता है कि इस पर्टिकुलर कमीशन, गायकवाड़ कमीशन ने रेकमेंड किया था, कौन सी कमेटी अभी बनी है, दिलीप भोसले कमेटी बनी है. तो वो स्टैटिक इंफॉर्मेशन अभी तुम्हारे लिए चाहे मैटर ना करे, बट इट विल हेल्प यू फॉर्म योर बेसिस ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग व्हिच विल हेल्प यू फॉर योर एंटायर लाइफ, स्पेशली इन लॉ स्कूल. लॉ स्कूल में व्हाट विल हेल्प यू इज योर अंडरस्टैंडिंग. मैंने बहुत बार बोल दिया, तुम्हारे लिए अंडरस्टैंडिंग और फन, these two parts will play a major role in your preparation for that. मजे करो, समझ के पढ़ो, रट्टे से मत पढ़ो, do not study from the perspective कि मेरे को पढ़ना पड़ रहा है. That's all I will
Absolutely.
give. That's the final advice I would like to give
Wow,
to
wow,
every
wow.
single aspirant.
Amazing, amazing, Suvanssh. You have been absolutely a rock star while preparing and absolutely a super duper rock star here in this, conversation of
Thank you
ours
so
as well.
much.
I am so happy listening to each and every, word that you actually said today. I'm sure every student who will be watching this video will feel the same. Absolutely fantastic. 5 stars to this. Absolutely wonderful advices that you've actually
एक
shared.
last advice,
Completely.
एक last advice
Yes,
दूंगा
yes.
मैं कि ना होता है कभी कभी कि हम सोचते हैं कि टॉप यूजुअली द पर्सन हु एक्सेल्स कैन गिव यू द बेस्ट एडवाइस बट व्हेन यू रियलाइज कि जिस बंदे ने गलतियां की हैं उसको पता है कि उसने गलतियां कहाँ की हैं. मेरे को अपनी 1 लाख गलतियां पता है जो मतलब मैंने की और मैंने तुम्हें आधे से ज्यादा बता दिए थे. तो आई होप कि तुम ये रिपीट ना करो. तुम
Absolutely.
करोगे भी नहीं. आई बिलीव इन एवरी सिंगल वन हु इज वाचिंग दिस वीडियो. सो
Well said,
दैट्स इट.
well said.
या
So learn from your mistakes. This is the parting tip from Suvanssh. He can't help himself. If we basically go on, he'll be sharing lots of other tips as well. So guys, thank you on behalf of all the students who will be watching this video. I'll thank Suvanssh. Suvanssh, thank you so much for your
थैंक
time.
यू.
I am sure you'll keep rocking as you were rocking here at Grade Up. You'll keep on rocking in the future at your dream college as well. Well done, Suvanssh. We are
Yes,
super
thank
duper
you.
proud and we wish you all the very best for your future.
Thank you,
Thank you.
sir.